Hi, my name's Kim J and I'm a visually impaired chef. I'm also a volunteer for RNIB. I've written 2 cookery books, an Indian cookery book called A Taste of Spice and another book called A Sense of Cooking, both of which are in large print with all profits going to RNIB. Now today I'm going to make one of my favourite recipes, lemon meringue pie. Who doesn't like lemon meringue pie? Very easy to make, and here are the ingredients. Now you do it in 2 sections. So the first thing you need is ready rolled shortcrust pastry. You can use sweet pastry, but I tend to find the sweet pastry with the meringue, it's just too much sweetness. So I prefer personally to go for shortcrust pastry. Now for the filling, you are going to need the juice and zest of 2 lemons, 130 grams of caster sugar, approximately 2 tablespoons of butter. You're going to need 6 tablespoons of corn flour, and we're going to need 5 egg yolks. Keep the egg whites because we're going to need that for the meringue, and for the meringue we're going to need a tablespoon of cornstarch, 130 grams of sugar, a teaspoon of vinegar, or you can use half a teaspoon of cream of tartar, a pinch of salt and 5 egg whites, and those are the ingredients for my lemon meringue pie. I've took a 16 centimetre to 18 centimetre flan dish, a deep one, and I've buttered it. Now I've also got a small one because if there's any pastry left, I don't like wasting anything, so I make little miniature ones. Now the first thing we're going to do is roll out the pastry. So on a pastry board or on a unit, just very lightly flour the board, get your pastry and very gently place it onto the board. Now if you're getting shop bought pastry, don't use it as soon as it comes out of the fridge because it's hard and it's tough and it breaks really easy. Give it a good sort of 5-10 minutes just to relax, to allow it to make it easier for you to roll. Now I'm lightly flouring the pastry on both sides, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it out so that it's big enough to cover my flan dish. Now I don't like thick pastry on a pie, so I like my pastry sort of slightly thin, but this is your lemon meringue pie, do it the thickness that you like the pastry, so big enough to go over the flan dish. Now be very gentle when using the rolling pin, don't put too much pressure on, it just takes a light pressure to roll out this dough. Now if it sticks, if it breaks, don't worry, just roll it back up and start again. Now that gentle roll should overlap my dish. Now I'm going to put the pastry onto the flan dish and very gently push the pastry down right into the corners. Now if the pastry at any stage breaks at this stage, don't worry, all you have to do is to mend it by placing a little bit of other pastry on top. I've patted that down. I'm just going to take a bit of pastry, and if there's a section that looks as if it's broken or it's ripped or it's slightly thin, just pat it down very, very gently, and then with a pair of scissors I'm going to cut the pastry so it's almost an inch off the edge. Now pastry, when it's warm, is relaxed and it's floppy, and then as it cools down or as more heat is applied, it contracts and it shrinks. Now to stop a lot of shrinkage, what we do is we refrigerate the pastry in the pie dish for at least half an hour. But before doing that, I'm going to take a fork, and with the back of the fork on the edge of the flan dish, I'm just going to pat it down so it gives this lovely sort of fluted kind of effect. You can use your finger and thumb, totally up to you, but just press it down to give a lovely fluted edge. And that is now going to go into the fridge, and with the pastry that's left over, I'm going to make some mini ones. I've grated the outside of the lemon just very lightly so that you're zesting it. So what you then have is the zest, which is the peel on one side. You don't want to be grating the white bit. Now, for those of you that don't have sight, you can tell by the texture of the lemon which is sort of the zest bit, and when you get to the white bit, the zest bit is a lot smoother, the white bit is sort of rougher. Now, once I've zested it, I've juiced it, so I've got the 2 lemon juices all done and on one side. Now the next step is separating the eggs. Now there are different techniques for separating the eggs, and you need to make sure that the egg yolk does not mix with the egg white, otherwise your meringues won't work. Now the easiest method, especially when you've not got sight, is crack the egg and place it in your hand. So the egg is in the palm of your hand and your hand is cupped and your fingers are tight. Now very gently, very slowly, slightly open your fingers, and what happens is the white dribbles down into one dish, and what you're left in your hand is the egg yolk, and it hasn't broken, and you put the egg white in one dish and the egg yolk in the other. And if you're anything like me, just remember which dish has the egg white and which dish has the egg yolk. Right, I'll show you again. I've cracked the egg, I've placed the egg on my hand with my hand cupped, and I very gently open my hand, fingers just a little, not a lot, just enough to let the egg white to run through, and you're left with the egg yolk, which is almost like a solid feeling, a sort of a heavy feeling in the palm of your hand, and you separate that. And you do that with all of the eggs. Whilst the pastry is cooling in the fridge, I'm going to make the filling, because you need it cool before you put it into the pastry dish. I've got a large saucepan. I've not put the hob on yet. Now in this saucepan I'm going to put those 6 tablespoons of corn flour, the 270 grams of sugar, and into there I'm going to put approximately 350 millilitres of cold water and a tiny pinch of salt, and stir that in until it's combined. Now it will be thick and lumpy to start off with, but the more you stir it, the more the mixture comes together and there's no lumps in it. Now, as soon as you get to the stage where there's no lumps in it, put the hob on and start to bring it to a heat, and what you're doing is you're cooking the corn flour, the sugar and the water until it becomes almost the consistency of cream. Now as it heats up, you will find it will thicken, and that's what it's supposed to do. Basically you're making a water custard here. So just keep stirring all the time. If you stop stirring, lumps will form, so just keep stirring. I'm stirring this mixture and it's now thick. It's like thick custard. Now at this point I've took it off the heat and I'm going to let it cool down for 10 minutes, because the next bit we add the egg yolks, and if you put the egg yolks into a warm mixture it will curdle. So let's cool this cornstarch mixture down before we do the next bit. This mixture is now cooled down. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put half of the egg yolks, not the egg whites, half the egg yolks into this corn flour mixture and stir. Once it's stirred, put the hob back on, but onto a medium to low heat, and add the rest of the egg yolk. Give it a good stir. Now we're going to add about 2 teaspoons of the lemon zest. You don't want too much lemon zest in it because sometimes it has a slight bitter taste, especially if you get a little bit of pith in it. So that's about 2 teaspoons of lemon zest. The 2 tablespoons of butter we also put into this mixture. And I'm also going to put the lemon juice from those 2 lemons. And give this mixture a good stir. And keep on stirring until everything has melted and merged together. And you get this lovely lemon custard. Now we're going to take it off the heat and leave it to cool for about 5 minutes, just every so often stirring the mixture. Now I've put the oven on, and whilst this is cooling down, we're going to start on the meringues. The corn flour or cornstarch I put into a bowl, and I want to mix into a paste with a little bit of cold water. Don't use warm water, just cold water. So just mix it in, and when you start mixing in, it feels tough and it feels as if it's lumping up, but don't worry, that's how it's supposed to feel. And just stir it in until you can feel that there are no lumps and there's no solidity to the mixture. Now you want just enough to be able to mix it in with the cold water. Right, now that's done. I'll move that to one side, and in a large mixing bowl I'm going to put the egg whites, and then we're going to start whisking. You can do this bit by hand, but if you've got an electric whisk, use that. And you want to do it until the whites are frothy, not quite peaks but frothy. So if I look at this, the egg whites are frothy but not stiff, just frothy. Now at this stage, into the corn flour paste mixture, I'm going to add that teaspoon of vinegar, or if you've got cream of tartar, half a teaspoon of cream of tartar. Now into this frothy meringue, I'm going to put literally a couple of tablespoons at a time the sugar, and then mix. Don't do it all at once, a little bit at a time. Whisk, stop, put some more sugar in, and you keep doing this until all the sugar is into the egg whites. I've combined all the sugar into the egg whites. Now I put that cornstarch and vinegar mixture into the egg white, and I'm going to start whisking now until the egg whites form soft peaks. Could take some time this. I've whisked the egg whites until they form soft peaks. Now how do you know when your egg whites are done? You could put it over your head, or just turn the bowl upside down, and if it doesn't fall out, your egg whites are ready. Now in the flan dishes with the pastry, I have poured that lemon filling into them, and it's about 3/4 of the way up. Now I've got a couple of spare small ones with the spare pastry I had left, and just to show you, you don't need to have a lemon meringue, you can use fruit. I'm using this lovely apple jam that I make from the apples that grow in my garden to make apple meringue pie. You can use rhubarb, raspberries, gooseberries, whatever you want. Now that I've done that, I'm going to put the meringue on top. You can put it into a piping bag and pipe it on top, but me, I like the rustic look. And I think as well, being visually impaired, it's always difficult to pipe. So this, just put it on, it's lovely, it's rustic, and you'll find the egg whites, don't smooth it out, just let it fall into peaks so you have texture as well, and it looks pretty. All those rustic peaks when they're cooked is just perfect. And cover your pie with this meringue until it's right to the edge. I've put the meringue on, and now I'm going to trim that excess pastry off the edge. You can use the flat of the knife or a pair of scissors and just trim it all off. And once I've done that, it goes into the oven at 160 degrees C, and I'm going to check on them at about the 20-minute mark. The lemon meringues have been in the oven for 30 minutes. Now, how can you tell when they're done? The top is firm to the touch. And for those of you who have got sight, it's like a lovely golden brown. The peaks in the meringue has held, and those are absolutely beautiful. Now, the meringue, when you bite into this, is marshmallow inside. It's soft, it's like having clouds, and with the citrus of the lemons cutting through the sweetness, it is amazing. Well worth trying this dish, Kim's lemon meringue pie. Now you have a recipe for a great dish, but when you're in the kitchen there are certain safety guides and rules that you should adhere to, and which keeps you safe. Now, one of the things that I do before I start cooking is I make sure that I've got shoes on that are sturdy with good grips. I make sure that there's nothing on the floor that I can trip over, and there are no spillages or liquid or condensation on the floor that makes it a bit of a hazard. Now, before cooking, the first thing that you do, as we all know, is wash our hands thoroughly. And especially when you're dealing with raw meat, at every stage, wash your hands thoroughly. It stops cross-contamination. It keeps you and your family safe. When you're using the oven and the hob, know your oven and hob really well. Now, I use tactile markings so that I know exactly what temperature to put the oven on and what setting, so that I've not put the grill on when I should be putting the oven on. Now, with the hob, whenever you're sort of putting anything on the hob, make sure the handle is not sticking out. Now, I like to keep the handle at approximately 10 to 12. And the reason for that is it's not near enough to the unit for you to accidentally knock it off. It is not over another hob which may be on, so the handle's getting hot. So this is the safest position. Now, if you're boiling anything, be very, very careful. Don't fill the pan up too much. And if possible, use the boiler alert, which tells you when that liquid is bubbling away and it's hot, and it keeps you safe. If you're not comfortable with the hob and the oven, use the microwave whenever you can. It's a lot safer. And every time you are taking things out of the oven or from the microwave, because remember, plates and dishes get extremely hot in the microwave, use oven gloves. Now, I like to use thermal oven gloves. They're a lot safer. Don't be tempted to use tea towels or anything else. And they literally go to extreme temperatures, so you're very safe with them. Whenever you cut any food in the kitchen, use safe cutting methods. Keep the blade away from your fingers, so set it a couple of millimeters away from your fingers, and that way you're safe all the time. Now, if you're not confident with a knife, you can use appliances like food processors. Make sure you know how they work properly, and keep safe. And if you're still not confident, ask somebody else to do it. It is better to be safe than have an injury. If you have any cuts or you cut yourself whilst you're in the kitchen, put a plaster on it. And if you have a burn, run it under cold water. And if it's bad, you seek medical advice straight away. whenever you cook meat, always ensure that the meat is thoroughly cooked, because you know, raw meat will give you food poisoning. Now, the best optimum temperature to cook meat is between 66 degrees and 73 degrees. Use a food thermometer if you're not too sure. They do have talking food thermometers, which you can get quite easily. And you store the meat as soon as you can. As soon as it's cooled down, store it straight away in the fridge and read the advice on storage on the labels.